This is Valerie VanBooven with the Senior Care Industry Netcast, where leaders with 3 or more years of experience share their advice. So let's get to it. In a few sentences, tell us who you are and what you do.
Thank you, Valerie. My name is Laura Biewer, and I serve the public by providing notary services, and I focus and specialize for those services to be in hospital settings, skilled nursing, assisted living, homes of the elderly, those who need access but can't get to notary services.
And we were just talking before this interview started about how important this is and how important it is for a notary who's going to be doing notarizations and things like this in these settings, how important it is for them to understand what's going on a little bit better, maybe than just your typical mobile notary that comes to the bank or to your house. So why don't you give us a little taste of what you do as far as training others and kind of how you came about doing all of this cool stuff?
Absolutely. You know, what prompted me to move into this area of service was I owned and operated an assisted living facility myself. I had a 6-bed, it was called Leia's Place, right here in Modesto, California. And during that time, there were several occasions where clients needed documents notarized, and I had a hard time getting a notary willing to come over to the facility to take care of it. And they're saying, oh, it's just too hard, it takes too long. I don't know if they know what they're doing. They can't sign their name. I mean, just one excuse after another. And I decided, all right, heck with this. I'm just going to become a notary myself and provide services. And what I found is, of course, there was a conflict of interest. I couldn't do it for my own clients. But what I did is that I found another person who felt the same way. She provided for my clients, and I went to other places. I volunteered for hospice for 10 years, providing notary services to those who could in no other way get access to those services. And now I train other notaries who are mobile notaries, but need to understand the special, extra special requirements when you're dealing with somebody who's more fragile. If you're in an environment like a hospital where it may not be as private, where they're definitely not going to be at their best. Right. And there's just a lot of emotional or psychological drama that may be going on in their life at this moment because of whatever it is. And by understanding that, it makes the appointment go more smoothly. It communicates care and compassion for the signer themselves. And it gives you an opportunity to do more than stamp a document, right? Because you're really doing the paper in and of itself may not seem important, but what it does for them, such as a healthcare directive and powers of attorney, so that their life can keep going, even if they can't administer that or orchestrate that. So that's what I'm about.
Well, that's awesome, because I'll tell you, having had documents notarized with and for my father, who has vascular dementia, and with and for my mother-in-law, who is in a nursing home currently. And the good news is we did all these things before things got too bad.
Right.
So we were able to all meet somewhere. But having done all of this, it's a stressful time for everybody.
Right.
Depending on how much the person understands, they feel like they're giving up, potentially giving up their freedom or their right to choose. It's just, there's a whole lot of emotions that go on. It's the first, maybe not the first, but a big step in a realization that I'm not able to maybe make these decisions anymore for myself, or potentially coming up soon, I'm not going to be able to make these decisions. So it is a really emotional time for family and for the person who may be signing durable power of attorney documents and things like that. So I think that having someone like you who specializes in a more compassionate, more educated, senior care type, education, because you've been there, you've done it, and you've been around it all these years, is a really needed thing. It's not just being a notary, it's being I don't know what you would call it, a senior service notary, or.
Yeah, I don't have a name for it, but I encourage notaries to work with me before they take on those kinds of assignments, because it's just going to be better for them and their experience. And, there's things for the notary because you get pulled into the drama. And you have to know how to not be pulled into that drama and remember what your job is. And at the same time, give the space and grace for the family to kind of work through what's happening when you're there. And it's a balance.
It is. And there's a fine line between what you should interject or what you should add or what you should offer and what you should not be doing. Right. I can imagine you've come across some sticky situations where probably the right answer, but everybody's kind of looking at each other like, well.
Right. And if I interject where I shouldn't, I could be unintentionally engaging in the unauthorized practice of law. So sometimes when people are like, why is the notary not telling me what to do? They need to remember, I'm not an attorney, I'm a notary, and I have limits. And if I exceed those limits, then legally I've created an issue for them and for me.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk to me a little bit more about training. Do you provide some formal training services for other notaries? Yeah, tell us. I do.
So besides being a notary for At Your Service Mobile Notary, that's the notary business, I have another line of business called Coach Me Laura. And that is specifically for mobile notaries who that's how they make their living. And they want to expand beyond doing loan signings, right? They want to be able to serve the public in many ways. And I have separate modules that I've put together for them to walk through what they would need to know. And I have one just for hospital setting, skilled nursing, and assisted living, those three. Then I have another one that's on documents, powers of attorney, healthcare directives, last will and testaments, so that they understand what do these documents look like? What do they do? Where's my part? Where's their part? What's important for me to understand about what they are doing when I'm in the room? And so those are just a couple of the ones. I have like 3 or 4 modules that all are around senior care, or at least those who are in compromised, because not everybody's a senior necessarily, but they may be younger but have something compromising their ability to take care of their own issues.
Yes, absolutely. And that's great. I think you need more of that. So what we're going to do is make sure that your website or whatever information, contact information you have is with this video, so that if folks are wondering, how can I learn more about that and not just do loans, right, loan documents and things like that? How can I get more involved and take more business and feel comfortable doing that, especially, right, we're talking about end of life issues and, some very sick people sometimes, and some just, right, just seniors. But they'll be able to contact you and get more information. You've been around for a long time. You've seen the inside of a lot of facilities. You've run your own care home, and you've done all these things. What piece of advice would you give to senior care providers out there?
I think as it relates to me coming in to these facilities and trying to work with their clients, that they too need to give themselves the space and grace to step aside when it's needed, because the family's still the family. And even if you don't agree with what it is they're setting up, that's the right to make those choices uninfluenced by those that are there. And it's one thing to give facts or information to family about what's happening. It's another thing to suggest or influence, this is how, you should do it. And I think when that is done, it's done out of caring and knowing the client, because, you're taking care of them 365 days a year, and they become your own family. And you have to remember they're not your family. And there needs to be, to always keep that professional line that says, I can do this much for you. Everything I'm allowed to do, I will do. And I will support whatever it is. But when it comes time to making decisions, client and family need to have the opportunity to do that uninterrupted. And sometimes I'll ask when I go in, please, could everybody leave the room? because I'd like to speak to grandma, I'd like to speak whoever, and just with nobody in the room, be able to hear them tell me, yes, this is what I want. Yes, I understand. That's what I'm signing. And I'll get questions like, does this mean I can't speak anymore? Does this mean that I don't get to make decisions? Because they misunderstand that power of attorney shares the power until the time comes when they can't speak for themselves. But until that day, they can still sign for themselves and speak for themselves and make decisions for themselves. And I think that some of the care providers don't realize that either.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I have to call your daughter. I experienced it. My mom's in assisted living now. And she wanted to take a cab because I was out of town to go somewhere. And they didn't want to let her out because they couldn't reach me because I'm listed as her attorney in fact and healthcare proxy. And I had to go explain to them, she knows exactly what she's about and that she knows how to take a cab. She's blind, by the way. So there's a little extra. I'm sure that's what they were concerned about, that she was just going to go get in a cab. What was she going to do when she got there? How would she know? Right. My mom has had independent living training. She knows. She lived for 20 years blind. She knows how to do it. Right. And I had to help them understand that's not what that document means. It just means that I'm sharing the power with her. And should she not be available because she can't speak for herself, then I'm going to speak for her. But until that moment happens, she is allowed to make her decisions to leave the facility, to do whatever she wants until she demonstrates that she cannot. And I found it interesting that they really didn't understand that.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I can remember specifically when we had durable power of attorney set up for my dad, reassuring him that this doesn't mean, everybody should have some directives in place. Maybe not durable power. I
have them.
Yes, but everybody should have this in writing, and everybody should have their paperwork in order. And we were, he was diagnosed with vascular dementia, but still could make his own decisions pretty much at that time. And we were just reassuring him, this doesn't mean that you can't, decide if you want a ham sandwich or a turkey sandwich for lunch. It doesn't, you make all of your own decisions until the day when you simply can't do that anymore. And then that's when your wife and myself, we step in and we help. And we know what you would want in that case. And so it's not a bad thing to do for anybody, actually, especially if you
absolutely. My kids went to college, Valerie. First thing I did, healthcare directives and powers of attorney, because they were going away. And how was I going to help them if they're not minors anymore? Yeah. So they're not going to share medical stuff. I'm not going to be able to do anything unless I had documents that said. So if they were in a car crash or something happened, thank goodness it didn't, but we had paperwork in place should that take place. And my husband and I both, for 15, 20 years, have had paperwork in place. We're young. It's not for old people. It's for everybody. I just happen to find myself working often with seniors or adults that are compromised in some way who have never taken care of it yet.
Oh yeah.
And that's how this came to be. When I noticed how often this was happening, I left being a care provider and sold my business and decided this is my mission in life, to educate people about these documents, to help people get access who can't get access, and help them understand what really is going on, because it's a big deal for them, feeling like they're giving up that last, they give up their house, they give up their car, they just keep giving up things. And they feel like this is the last thing, right? The last thing that they have control over. Yes. And it's scary for them to do this. So this is a big deal. And I'm sharing that moment with them. I share the most intimate moments with people that are making hard decisions. I get joyful things as well. I do adoptions and other things, but in this area and end of life, I do a lot of end of life. I took training with a hospice in my town, and so that I'd know what to do and how to handle people who are at home or at a hospice house, end of life situations. So if you're a notary who happens to see this and you think, wow, I want to do that. That touches my heart. I would like to be a part of that. Please get some training, get some knowledge about what's happening in these environments and what are these documents about before you dive in. Because you will feel better, they will feel better about it. And you know what I love is that I can serve the public, I can do something that touches my heart, and I can make a great living doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. I really think this is a great addition to anyone who already has that stamp. This is a great addition to your skill and to your service to others. So I think that you're doing such a great job. So we'll make sure people can get in touch with you, ask questions if they want to, or participate in the services that you provide to help people understand more about what it's like to help more on the medical side, perhaps, than just loan documents, which I know are important because trust me, you've done that too. But yeah, and I can remember when my children were tiny, my husband and I went out of town and we gave our my husband's sister temporary power of attorney, because if the children had been sick and we had to catch a plane ride back, sometimes that doesn't happen in 2 seconds. So we had some documents drawn up that was just, we just used them anytime we went out of town. I traveled a lot at the time, and so if my husband was going with me, we would just have another one notarized and just temporary for certain dates. And that was beautiful because she could help us make, she could make decisions. We trusted her, and it was great. That was a great thing to have too. So all kinds of different reasons that you might need some of these things done. And
yeah, absolutely.
Nice when you have someone out there who's experienced in some of these medical issues. So I'm going to ask you one more question. This is my fun question. We always end our interviews this way. When you have a win in life or in business, how do you like to celebrate? It could be birthdays, it could be just having a great day or did something great for a family or they're happy or whatever.
I'm very close with my adult sons who both live in town and their families. And so if it's a big win, my idea is everybody come over and let's eat, let's have a party, basically. That's like number one. Birthdays, we have a tradition. Birthday person gets to pick where, and we all show up and we do their birthday dinner at wherever it is that they have chosen. And we've been doing that as a family, and as our family has grown, including, my son's significant others as well. And now that we have our first grandson, we kind of celebrate and close out the week every Friday together.
Nice. That's great.
So those are some of the, you can see they're all family related because I spend all day helping other families. And I need that recharge with my own, so I can go back out and give some more.
Yep, absolutely. Yep, recharge those batteries and fill back up with compassion and kindness and love and energy for the next week. So that's awesome. I'm glad you live so close that you guys can do that. And I also want to say happy holidays, happy new year. And because we're getting close to the end of the year here. So thank you very much for coming on the interview and doing this with us. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Valerie. I just am so happy I had the opportunity to do this, because a lot of people don't think about some of these mobile services that they might have to bring in. And I think this one's a real important one. It can be a life-changing one.
It is. Absolutely. It's a great service. So thank you very much.
You're so welcome.